The way that we're going to start this afternoon off is we are going to get back to the right page here. We're going to have a speaker first thing, which is Stephen Phelps from Lutheran Planned Giving. And I think that everybody is stopped at Stephen's booth, but that's okay. He is been in partnership sponsor with Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Central State Synod with the ELCA Foundation. He has 8 serving arm ministries to provide stewardship services for congregations and individual members. LPG is available to assist individuals in expressing their faith and their Christian values in estate planning, gift giving, to help plan for themselves, their loved ones, and the ministries and the congregations. And then he helps to enhance congregational mission endowment funds and provide educational resources. So I think you're going to go into more detail. His bio is on page 13. I just want to allow him enough time to talk and get to know you on a more personal level. So I'm not going to read this verbatim, but he has been with, how long have you been in this position?
It's going on
2 years?
15 months.
15 months, okay. Close to 2 years. So with no further ado, I would like to ask Stephen to come up and give his presentation.
Okay. If I don't use it, can you hear me? All right, good. I'll speak with my big voice. This has the wrong date on it, because actually I'm doing a presentation up in St. Louis next week. However, that doesn't mean that I don't care about y'all. And, but I was trying to be very mindful of your time. So that's me. Okay, I want to talk about 2 families. And it's a tale of 2 families. And planned giving is not sexy. Let's just be right up front about it. No one wants to talk about it because we're kind of talking about death. However, we're all going to go to our rest, and we're all going to get to see our Lord one time or another. My father's already up there, God rest his soul. And I know he's up there looking down right now saying, Stephen, do a good job. And, and last year I told you all about my father. If you were there, I shared that story of my father's last will and testament, which he did literally on his deathbed. He had had a stroke. He was with my mom, traveling in a car. They were coming back from Little Rock, visiting my aunt, who now lives up with us in St. Louis. But he had had a stroke, and he wanted to make some changes to his beneficiary designations on his 403B and 401ks. Without doing it before he died, it wouldn't have happened. It all would have flowed to my mother, and there would have been tax implications. And he's thinking about all this while he had had this stroke. So we were very fortunate that my dad was still with it at the time. I wish he had done it before he had gotten sick, and that's the importance of what I want to talk about today. Why is it a tale of two families? Well, taking St. Louis County as an example, the average family income in St. Louis County is $83,200 a year. The family home's worth about $126,000. They have investments of about $115,000. They have retirement of $106,000. Most have a savings account, about $20,000 sitting around there. So if you add it all up together, husband and wife together, $450,000. That's how much they're worth at this family if they were both to pass today. That's how much is there. It's really kind of interesting when you sit down yourself, whether you're still married or your spouse is still living, or if you're on your own. I did this with my mother. She was astounded at how much she's actually worth. And I'm like, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. I don't want to be in your will. I want you to do what you want to do with that. And that's what I do. I've been doing fundraising for about 30 years. As Sophia said, I joined the ELCA back last July in 2014, and it has been the most happiest, most wonderful move that I've ever done in my career. I'm hoping it's going to be my last stop because I'm getting old, and relatively speaking, I'd like to retire in my 60s, and that's coming soon. But I love what I do because I get to mix two of the things that mean the most to me. Helping people understand the power of giving and then living my Lutheran faith. Many of you know I was raised Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. If you don't, I'm sorry. I'm still recovering from it. My mother says it was my fault. I said it was her fault. But anyway, all that aside, we as Lutherans, both in the LCMS, WELCA, or the Wisconsin Synod, and the ELCA, we all have giving hearts because that's what God calls us to do. We said it last night, or earlier today when we ended our church service. Go forth, remember the poor. The woman at the well, they're sharing what they have. We should share. And this is how we do it. So they have a net worth of $450,000. What I don't want y'all to be, and I know this might be hard to see, I don't want you to be the storks. Notice what the stork is doing. Head in the sand, right? And pay taxes first before anything else, before it goes to your spouse, before it goes to your children, grandkids, or more importantly, WELCA and the church and the wonderful things that we do. There are wonderful ways to avoid probate, and it's very simple. You wish to make designations, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as you can see down here, even with being light on the probate costs of 3% on that estate, right there, 13. Up to $20,000 in tax on that estate that was passed to them after those expenses are taken out. The siblings, they got to pay up to that much amount of tax. And anybody else, what does that leave? Nothing. Nothing passes to the church, nothing passes to WELCA because it's all been eaten up. We don't want that. Better example, the stewards. The stewards plan. They have the same net worth, but they titled their home jointly, meaning that it passes to the other. So if one spouse one of the most easiest things to do. I just did this myself. I work for the church. I work for the ELCA. So all of my retirement, my life insurance, everything is up in Chicago. I can beneficiarily designate, of course it's going to immediately, if I were to pass, it goes to my spouse. And then after that, it can go wherever else I want it, because you can do primary beneficiary, you can do secondary beneficiary. That secondary beneficiary is very important because if you and your spouse were to die at the same time, and it happens more often than not, believe it or not, mostly car crashes. I know that isn't something that you want to hear, but it does happen. And a lot of the times, folks haven't done that secondary beneficiary. So what happens with that? It goes into probate. We don't want that. We want it to pass on. So you can designate whoever you wish. It can be your child, your grandchild, or it can be the church or any charity that you wish on that secondary beneficiary. And it took me less than 15 minutes of downloading the forms from Chicago and making those beneficiary designations. So if I and my spouse were to die at the same time, some very important missions within the ELCA are going to be very happy. And I've already told them that I've done this. And 95% of the time, when folks make a beneficiary designation, very rarely do they change it. Because we love the charities that we pick. We love the people that we are wanting to be our beneficiaries. So very rarely do we change it. It's not that you can't. You can change it every day if you wish. But that's the power of bequesting. You have that power. And Lisa kind of talked about that yesterday. It can live on. Our mission, our faith can live on. And this is a great example of that. So everything they had, they either transferred on death or made a beneficiary. Their CDs, their savings accounts, their checking accounts, no probate, no inheritance taxes. Why? Because it goes straight to the designation of that person or the charity. It avoids probate. There is no question. It can't be questioned or taken to court because that beneficiary designation is binding. It goes straight to that. And you have the power to do that, you and your spouse. Okay, this gets really small. I know it's really hard to read. That's why if you would love to meet with me, I'd love to meet with you. I love coming down here to Northwest Arkansas. I didn't realize how much I was going to love it. I drove up Thursday from Little Rock, doing a visit down there to the Boston Mountains, just south of here. Gorgeous. Loved it. Oops. Come back. Thank you. Come back. There we go. All right. Talk about all that $450,500. You see over there, total assets to kids. So that's everything added up. Their Roths, their IRAs, their life insurance, their home equity, everything together, the rainy day fund, comes to $405,450, or 90% of their estate. They have two kids. $202,000 and change is being given to them by their parents, or a parent. This could also be a single person like yourself, or a widower. Of that $450,500, this person, she decided she wanted $10,000 to come out of her retirement plan. Straight over, $45,050. It's going to go directly to the charities that she named. Disaster Relief, ELCA Disaster Relief, and Global Mission. And they're both going to get $22,525. There was no trust set up here, per se, though she did have a trust agreement. So even without the trust agreement, this scenario could still happen because she made a beneficiary designation out of that retirement plan straight over. So it didn't affect what was going to the kids. You can do that today. Don't have to have a trust or anything like that. You can just beneficiary designate it, it's done. It's wonderful. So that's the power of what I do. That's what I help individuals like yourselves do. And we all know, studies have shown that in families like yours, most of the giving decisions are made by women. Most women write the checks. It's true. We've got studies to prove it. And what's that? Why is that so important? Because you guys take the time. Men are horrible at it. We are. And there's nobody else in here to back me up right now, I don't think. Oh, there you are. We're horrible at it, right? Well, I'll do that next week. Well, in my father's case, as you remember, if you know the story from last year, after my father made me go back to the house, instead of going straight to the hospital when I found out that he had had the stroke when my mom called me, he made me go to the house, go in the basement, go behind the water heater, not kidding, get his green tackle box, and that's where he had the will documents. We don't want to pass things through our will. He knew that because I had told him that many, many, many times. He knew that he had to make a beneficiary designation change, and he had to do it in the witness of myself since I was executor of his estate and his wife. He actually had the form in there, but he had not filled it out. Luckily, he did. We administered TPA, which is a drug to help break clots. It caused another bleed while he was in the helicopter being transferred from Illinois back to Missouri. My father never woke up. And 30 days later, we let him go to God. And the reason I share that story again is because of the power of what my father decided to do at that point. And he wanted to leave money for a baptismal font at his church, their LCMS, as I mentioned. And he wanted a new one built because their old one needed sort of time to put water in it. There would be a pool of water on the floor. They had to put a towel around the bottom of it. And now that baptismal font, several years later, my father passed in 2008, has blessed many children. You could do that. You could do something like that. Whether it's making sure that WELCA has the money to give those wonderful grants that Lisa talked about yesterday, or to sponsor female pastors coming out of seminary so that they don't have debt. I mean, some of them are coming out with $50,000 worth of debt, and they're going to work for a church where they're only paying them $25,000 a year. How are they ever going to pay that off? We can make a difference. It's staggering how much it costs to become a pastor these days. We can make a difference by leaving something in our estate. The last story I'll share with you is one that's a little bit further even back, before I started working for the church, but I was still doing development work. I was working for a homeless charity in St. Louis that helped people with HIV/AIDS. And I attend Bethel Lutheran in St. Louis. Bethel Lutheran, many of you might not know our history. We are the Church of Seminex. Concordia Seminary is right down the street from Bethel. So back in the 70s, when that all went down, they marched right up Big Bend Boulevard to Forsyth and planted their flag at Bethel. That's when Bethel left the LCMS, long story. But the important part about that is that Bethel has always been a place of extravagant welcome. Jesus was about extravagant welcome. Outcasts, sinners, prostitutes. He didn't care. He wanted you to have that living water. Bethel has opened its doors since the early 90s to the LGBT community in St. Louis, long before it was cool. And we took a lot of flack for it. But anyway, there was a gentleman at our church, his name was Charles. And Charles was a really good friend of mine. I'd known Charles since the early 90s because I sang in the Gateway Men's Chorus in St. Louis, and Charles was one of our volunteers. Charles worked for the phone company, but he was also an artist and an interior designer. He was brilliant. There wasn't anything that he couldn't sew together or decorate. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And Charles was a first waver. I didn't know this at the time until he passed, but he had contracted AIDS, I'm imagining sometime in the 70s, through a blood transfusion. And as time went along, he managed to keep his health, which, you know, to this day just astounds me because we buried so many people in the 80s. I mean, I had friends that were dying every week in St. Louis. But Charles held on. And in 2003, we were at church. It was, we were in Lenten season. Easter that year was on April the 20th. Charles died on April 23rd, 2003. A couple weeks before that, I noticed that Charles was getting really frail. And I really didn't know what was going on, but we knew it was cancer. I just didn't know at the time it was HIV/AIDS related. And he slid up to me one day in church. We were waiting for service to start. He leans over and he says, "So, what do you think about new altar vestments in purple?" Because that was his favorite color. And he loved Easter. He had made these beautiful gold and white ones that you put up on Easter Sunday for the resurrection, all hand-stitched and embroidered with doves, if you can imagine. Just if you've ever been to Bethel, which I don't think you have, but our church is nowhere as grand as this, but it is a beautiful sanctuary. And Charles was very proud of it. But he wanted a new set for Lent, and Lent at Bethel is very severe. We strip the altar. It's a time of repentance and deep inflection, as Lent should be. Walk in the 40 days, right? We wanted it to be a little bit more fabulous. So we wanted to leave some money to the church. But he didn't know how to do it, and he asked me, well, what would be the best way? And I said, well, appreciated security if you're going to leave a current gift. He goes, no, I'm going to leave it in my estate plan. And I'm like, oh, Charles, that's years down the road. This was 4 weeks before he passed.
And he went so quickly. But from that conversation, I had said, well, I've got an attorney friend, let's get your trust, make sure it's right. And you can do this and you can put it into the Bethel endowment. And I'll make sure that that money is used for the cloths. And so what they are now, we still use them to this day. They're about 20 foot tall, they go up on banners. And the first one's huge. So on the first Sunday of Lent, we put it up and it's big. It's just this huge dark purple panel. And then as the successive weeks go on, we put other panels over it that are smaller, but more intricate. They're still very plain because of the Lenten season, but the color of the fabrics that he picked out are more shimmering, they're more deep. The colors of purple I've never seen. I don't know where he found this fabric. But we use them to this day. And every day that I see those during the Lenten season, Charles is right there with me. So you have the power to do this through your estate plan. You have the power to be Charles, or whoever you wish to be. But it's time that we think about how we want our life that we've traveled through and worked so hard on this planet to go on after us. We can set it up to where it goes on forever if you want to, through endowments and memorials. Or if you want something a little bit more quick, you just make that straight bequest and make it unrestricted. The power that you will have is that you'll be furthering the mission of WELCA or whatever it is that you're called to support, while at the same time taking care of the loved ones and the people that mean the most to you. For me, it's my golden retriever. But all I ask is that you consider it, think about it, and don't wait. Thank you very much.
Passing of the torches here. Okay, now for the business card. We have the business meeting. It's going to continue, and is Linda here? Linda O'Connell? No, not yet? Okay. We had planned to have a move around, because we don't want you to fall asleep after that wonderful lunch. So when Miss Linda gets here, then we'll just take a little break and then we'll get up and move. So, but at this point, we're going to continue with the business meeting. So, at this time, I would like to call Carol Beck forward. She is the chair of the nominating committee for the committee's report prior to our ballots. Go ahead. I have to take notes too.
Okay. So the following names have been placed into nomination by the committee. And that's page 14 in your book. Look at the people. For president, and I'll probably pronounce your name wrong. Budzing? Okay, and Michelle Static, right? Okay. Should have easy names like secretary is Martha Lowe, and then for the member at large, one of the mission positions, we do have a nomination, and that is Joan, no, it's, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Joan Evans. So I'm going to pass these out to all the voting members so you can see her bio, because this came in late.
deal. Churchwide has not for a long time been using the mission justice or the discipleship or anything. They are just electing members at large. But because we don't like change, and because we have to label or, have some kind of guidance, we still, as a synodical women's organization, have mission justice and mission disciple. But actually, those positions are really a position of member at large on the board. So we kind of use those synonymously. So,
Can you just have her stand up?
could I have Joan
And then
stand up, please? And to tell you that she is from Conference 5, Prince of Peace, and she lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Her bio is not in the book, so I will just read this. She has been on church council, food bank, Sunday school teacher, usher, lector, assistant minister, a weekly breakfast cook for the congregation. She has also in her community, she has helped with the food bank. She served luncheon at Jackson House for the homeless once a month. And I know she does far more than that, but that's just all that's listed here. Yes.
Okay, so we have no one for the other at large, and no one from Conference 1. Conference 2 is Latisa Williams, and her bio should be in the booklet. And then for Conference 5, we have another nomination. It's Jan Hodges, and I'll pass this out.
learned in Sunday school. And she thought for a minute, she said, about the Holy Spirit. And Mom said, oh, that's good. And then she said, what else did you learn about? And she said, about God. And what else? And the little girl thought for a while, and she goes, Cheez-Its. And the mother said, you mean Jesus? And she said, no, it was Cheez-Its. It didn't win the
over 16 members. I have over 18.
Okay. Who didn't vote?
Get out of there.
What? Who
I
didn't vote? You aren't allowed. Okay, so out of 18 voting members, the results for president are,
Yeah, okay. Okay. Budsy got 14, and Michelle Statterly got 2. So, and then for secretary, Martha Lowe got 16.
go ahead, you're on nomination.
Okay, now we'll vote for ballot number 3. So for the, do we have a nomination from the floor for a member at large?
There was someone who did put their name forward. You have to understand that this woman, this organization is special to the women. So our 2 individuals who ran for president both graciously said if they were not elected to that position, they would be more than happy to put their name on the ballot for an at-large member because they believe that strongly in this organization. So Michelle's name will be placed on the ballot for an at-large member because she so chooses to do that. So we have 2 people on that list, and I'll let Carol tell you.
All right, so our members at large are going to be Joan Evans and Michelle, and you have Michelle's bio in your book. And we read Jones. So are there any other nominations from the floor for the members at large? Okay, is there any other nominations from the floor for member at large? Okay, final time. Is there any nominations from the floor for a member at large? Okay, you can vote on the members at large. Okay, we have the election result for the conference positions. Out of the 18 voting members, we have 16 voted. And for, of course, Latessa Williams, and for conference 2, and 16 for Jan Hodges for conference 5. Thank you, ladies.
I only have 18 voting members, and we only have 16. So if you don't mind waiting just a few minutes until they finish voting on the other 2 people, then I will, we can certainly go from there. I would like to, we'll just continue on and then we'll do that in a minute. I would like to call forward, yes, Theda, to come up and give us the treasurer's report. Oh, wait a minute. Probably ought to say the secretary's report first. Follow the script, follow the script. The board members have received the minutes from the last convention, and if anybody wants those, they didn't get into the booklet, but there is a whole stack of them over on the table over here, so please help yourself to one of those if you so choose. So that's from the last year's convention. Okay. And so, yes, ma'am.
Can we get clarification in a minute? So justice, we were voting for?
Justice and discipleship, just take that off, it's just member at large. Both of the positions are members at large. So it doesn't matter which one they are, at our next board meeting, they can choose which one they want.
So if everyone is voting for them and members at large, should we really have to count?
Yes, we have to have a number. That's a constitutional rule.
So if they're all voting for the same 2, then that's what we have.
Correct. So the secretary's reports, the board has had a chance and the delegates to review. And that, like I said, that did not appear in the booklet, but they are there. On the behalf of the synodical board, Martha or Norma have to vote for us to approve the secretary's minutes from the 2014 convention. Are you going to? Okay. Norma moves. The secretarial minutes from the 2014 convention. It's just a board thing. So we are going to recognize that it doesn't need a second because it came from the board. So are there any questions from the delegates about the secretarial minutes? Okay. All in favor of accepting the 2014 convention minutes, raise your green card. Okay. All those opposed, your red card. The affirmative has it, and the minutes have been approved. So at this point, I will call up Theda.
The budget appears on page, well, the whole report starts on page 21 and it is the report of the audit done by a CPA for the year ending 2015, which would have been February of this year. So on pages 21 and 22 and 23 is the audit. If you have any questions, you can come and ask me, or Michelle is here also. Just a couple of things. You know, one of the nice things about being treasurer and register is you get to meet all the people that come to convention firsthand. You've done the name tag, so you're able to put a name to a face. So to me, that is one of the greatest treasures of being treasurer. And I would like to offer a special thanks to Louise Wolbig and to Cody for helping us this morning redo parts of the budget. As you know, we did not have a board meeting in May. So consequently, the budget was put together without the approval of the board. We did it last night in the bathroom. True story. So thanks to both Louise and Cody for helping us with that this morning. Not the bathroom, the budget.
Thank you for clarifying.
Now, where's my script? Okay. At this time, I would ask my two helpers to please pass out the new revised budget. So on page 24, just cross that out. They're going to give you a new one. And then we'll go over briefly the changes. While they're passing it out, I'm going to go ahead and give you an abbreviated treasurer's report as of the end of August for the checking account. And it's at the bottom of page 23. Our beginning budget, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. I saw that in years past you had spreadsheet after spreadsheet of a spreadsheet. And how many of you looked at those spreadsheets? Very few. So simplifying things, and I'm all for simplicity. The beginning balance as of February 1, 2015. Boy, don't I age great. Is, see, I got to keep you awake one way, and I got to know that you're listening to me, although I didn't plan that. The beginning balance of 2/1/15 was $2,619.05. From February through August, we had deposits of $6,680.05. Our disbursements were $2,015.42, leaving us a balance at the end of August of $7,083.68. And again, this is at the bottom of page 23. Do not confuse this with the audit. This is where we're at right now, as of August. For the Mission Investment Fund, we had a beginning balance at the 1st of February 2015 of $5,483.46, and we made a whopping $9.20 interest. And let me tell you, that's better than our banks do. Our ending balance as of June 31st was $5,492.66. So if you have any questions on our balances, come and see me. Now, moving on to the budget that you have in front of you. On behalf of the Synodical Board, I move the adoption of the budget.
Are there any questions from the delegates on the budget? All right. Do the ones who have the booklet, would you like to have what the new proposed budget is? And you just cross out? Everybody got a copy? Okay, so there shouldn't be any questions. Okay. So the chair is calling for the vote. All in favor of adoption of the proposed budget, raise your green card. Opposed? Okay, the affirmation has it, and the budget is adopted. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do not believe that this, I'm going to call Ms. Carol forward.
Okay, we have the results from the third ballot for the members at large. So of the 18 voting members, we have 16 for Joan Evans and 16 for Michelle Stafford.
So your new synodical board consists of the chair declares Penny Hudson elected to the position of president, Martha Lowe elected to the position of secretary, Letisa Williams in the position of conference 2 rep. The two mission at larges are Michelle Stadley and Joan Evans. The position of conference 5 rep is Jan Hodges. And we still don't have anybody for conference 1. So, but that's your new board members that have been elected at this convention. To my knowledge, we don't have any other votes to do. And we are well ahead of schedule. This went much smoother. We've been trying to streamline our voting process so that the people who are not our delegates don't fall asleep. Next year will be a little bit more detailed because we have to vote for triennial delegates. So if you are so inclined, I need you to start prayerfully considering running for the positions that will be open on the board next year and also for triennial delegate. All right, and so at that, we are actually free for a little while unless we want to start early with our workshops because Sue Wade has not arrived, so, and she was to start at 2:15, so we're ahead of schedule. So if you want to start, we can do one of a few things. We can either go and do some of the teddy bears and quilts for a little while until 2:55, or we can do that until 2:30 and then start our workshops. I don't know if Donna is here yet. Not yet? So we can either have fellowship, we can go work on the teddy bears and the quilts. I think this is the first time we've ever been ahead of schedule. Wow, this is a really day. So it's your choice. You can have fellowship, you can go quilt, you can go do teddy bears,